Welcome to the kingdom of Prospera. It's this thriving, bustling nation of 50 million people, complete with beautiful cities, massive highways, schools, hospitals, airports, and a fully equipped military. Every single morning, teachers are heading to their classrooms, doctors are scrubbing in for surgery, engineers are out repairing bridges. We're going to use the story of Prospera to unpack one of the absolute most misunderstood topics out there: why nations borrow money, and honestly, why they don't just print their way out of debt. Think about it for a second. Running a country is actually remarkably similar to running the world's biggest corporation. You've got this massive, never-ending list of daily operations that require constant, and I mean constant, funding. Every single day, a country needs a truly staggering amount of cash just to keep those teachers teaching, the police protecting neighborhoods, and the firefighters on standby. But what happens when that massive enterprise suddenly realizes, well, it doesn't have enough cash in the bank to pay for it all? Section 1. The kingdom's big problem. So let's look at Prospera's leader, Prime Minister Sarah. It's the start of the fiscal year, and her finance minister proudly announces that they expect to collect $900 billion in tax revenue. Great, right? Well, as Sarah's listening, the spending requests start pouring in. Education needs $150 billion, health needs $200 billion, then there's defense, roads, disaster relief. By the time her ministers finish talking, the total spending bill has absolutely ballooned to $1.1 trillion. Meaning the government is short exactly $200 billion. Just let that number sink in for a second. $200 billion. That is a staggering shortfall, and you can imagine the incredible tension in that conference room right now. Without this money, the country literally cannot run smoothly. Prime Minister Sarah is essentially left holding the bag, staring down a massive problem that she absolutely has to solve. Which brings us to Section 2, 3 very hard choices. Welcome to the decision room. I want you to put yourself in Prime Minister Sarah's shoes for a moment. The entire fate of Prospera is hanging on what happens next. You need $200 billion just to keep the lights on. So what do? Which of these 3 difficult levers do you pull? Do you raise taxes, cut spending, or do you borrow? Let's look at the pain points of those first 2 options. If Sarah pulls the raise taxes lever, citizens complain, businesses invest less, consumers stop spending, and economic growth essentially slows down to a crawl. In fact, sometimes raising taxes actually shrinks the economy so much that you end up collecting less money. On the flip side, if she pulls the cut spending lever, well, that means fewer teachers, less healthcare, potholes in the roads, and a smaller military. Citizens become unhappy all over again, and the economy can still take a hit. Both options are politically and economically brutal. She really needs a better way out of this. And this brings us to a crucial realization. Not all debt is bad. Think about it. Over here, we have Ahmed. He borrows $500,000 to build a factory. He creates jobs, he turns a profit, he builds wealth. That is good debt. Over there, Omar borrows the exact same amount, but for luxury cars that instantly lose value the second he drives them off the lot. That's bad debt. For countries, borrowing to build things like ports and internet infrastructure is exactly like Ahmed's factory. It generates future wealth. Okay, so the finance minister suggests borrowing. But who actually lends money to a whole country? I mean, governments don't just walk into a local bank branch, right? Instead, they sell government bonds to millions of investors all around the world. We're talking pension funds, insurance companies, and everyday folks. A bond is basically just a super reliable IOU. It promises the investor regular interest payments plus the return of their original money after a set time. And because governments are usually highly reliable, investors happily buy them up. So Sarah successfully issues these bonds, borrows the missing $200 billion, and boom, keeps Prospera running smoothly. But wait, Section 3, the forbidden money printer. Now here is the massive mystery in our story. Sarah just went through all that trouble to issue bonds and take on actual debt. But wait a minute, she's the prime minister. Her government literally owns the machines that print the money. It's the exact question I'm sure you're asking right now. Why on earth pay interest to investors when you could just push a button and print the missing $200 billion overnight? Seriously, what is stopping Sarah from just printing her way out of the problem? Well, Sarah actually asks her central bank governor this exact question, and the room goes dead silent. The governor looks at her, smiles, and delivers this profound economic truth. Because money is not wealth. I know, it sounds a bit like a riddle, but understanding this one single sentence is the absolute key to understanding the entire global economy. Section 4. The pizza inflation story. To truly grasp what the governor means, let's use a super simple analogy. Imagine a small town whose entire economy is based on one thing: pizza. There are exactly 10 pizzas and 10 people. Each person has $10, and each pizza costs $10. Perfect balance, right? Now imagine Sarah's government decides to just print more money, handing everyone an extra $10. Did the town magically bake any new pizzas? No. So printing tickets doesn't bake more pizzas. Everyone just tries to buy more with their new cash, and sellers instantly raise their prices to $20. This brings us to a formal definition. This exact phenomenon is called inflation. It happens when too much money chases too few goods. Printing all that extra money didn't create a single extra slice of pepperoni. It literally just made the existing pizzas twice as expensive. Nobody actually became richer. The true purchasing power of their money was just destroyed. If Sarah had printed the $200 billion to pay her government bills, she wouldn't have solved the problem. She would have just made everything in Prospera more expensive. And oh man, it gets worse. If Sarah ignores this warning and just keeps printing money to pay the bills, she triggers an inflation spiral. Just look at this terrifying timeline. Month 1, the government prints money. Month 2, people spend it faster, so businesses raise prices. Month 3, everything is so expensive that workers demand higher wages. By month 4, companies have to raise prices again just to pay those higher wages. The prices keep going up, and soon, citizens completely lose confidence in the currency itself. And we've seen this play out in the real world. History gives us several really stark examples where rapid money creation, often combined with deep economic, political, or wartime crises, contributed to hyperinflation. We're talking places like Germany in the early 1920s, Zimbabwe, Venezuela. In these cases, prices rose so incredibly fast that people's life savings lost almost all their value. Citizens literally rushed to spend their money the second they got it, before it became totally worthless. Excessive printing basically turned difficult situations into complete economic collapse. Section 5. Why smart countries borrow. So, returning to our story, Prime Minister Sarah wisely steps away from the forbidden money printer to avoid that whole inflation trap. Phew! But this brings us right back to her decision to borrow. The reality is, even the absolute wealthiest nations on Earth carry debt. Why? Because disciplined borrowing allows governments to build wildly expensive infrastructure today, respond to emergencies instantly, and spread the massive costs of long-lasting projects across the generations that will actually use them. Plus, independent central banks control the money supply to keep prices stable, which forces governments to borrow responsibly rather than just printing wildly. Now, I know you hear this a lot, but it's really important to note that a country is not exactly like your household. A family cannot create money, they usually rely on a single income source, and they certainly can't issue global bonds. A government, on the other hand, has multiple tax streams, immense economic power, and global investors eager to buy its debt. But even with those differences, the golden rule remains exactly the same. Borrowing is only sustainable if the lenders genuinely believe you have the ability to repay them. Which brings us to our final section, Section 6, the true meaning of wealth. As our story wraps up, Prime Minister Sarah is standing on a balcony overlooking Prospera. She sees cranes building towers, trucks rolling down the highways, universities completely full of students, and she finally understands the big picture. A nation's ultimate goal isn't zero debt. It's using debt intelligently to invest in value. Real wealth isn't a giant pile of cash sitting in a vault somewhere. It's farmers growing food, engineers building bridges, and workers manufacturing products. That human productivity, that is the true engine of a nation. Which leads us to this absolutely fundamental takeaway. Money is just a ticket. It isn't food, it isn't shelter, it isn't medicine. It is simply a claim ticket on real goods and services. Printing more tickets when there are no new goods to claim just dilutes the value of every single ticket in existence. I really hope that makes sure you never look at a dollar bill quite the same way again. And that is exactly why sensible countries issue bonds and take on debt to fund their investments, rather than just firing up the printing press to pay their bills. I'll leave you with this provocative thought to ponder the next time you hear someone talking about the national debt. Money can be printed. Real wealth cannot. So, what truly backs the economy you live and work in every single day? Think about that and keep exploring.